I saw a tweet today by a researcher, and the tweet was about the possible effect of boredom on research participants in psychological research. And the tweet began very promisingly. Is it important that people get bored when they're completing psychological research? And let's figure out the impact, the potential effect of boredom. And at the end of a long thread, I realized that they did nothing. They're just saying, yeah, people get bored. That's it. People get bored, and maybe we should pay attention to it. Some people get bored more than others. But why did you start by promising that you are interested in the effect of boredom? Why did you begin with that important, significant promise? And then at the end, you delivered so little. So this is related to style, and it is related to incongruency between the overt message and what is actually happening, the process that is delivering us the content right there in real time. All right, a quick video about style, the importance of style and attention to style. Last Saturday with our reading group, we discussed Susan Sontag's essay on style, which is part of this collection, Against Interpretation. And I would like to propose a rephrasing of Sontag's idea about the importance of style to emphasize why it is relevant to us. It is not a highbrow topic, high culture, only relevant to arts and the art scene. It is a very down-to-earth topic. It is very extremely relevant to us. Sontag asks us to focus on style, to pay attention to how something is being expressed to us, how something is in the process of being spoken. So imagine there are two friends. One of them tells the other, I really care about you, man, bro, I care a lot about you. And that's just being said. It is possible for that person who's saying that to be manipulating the friend, to be trying to trick the friend or forcing the friend through that superficial message of like, I'm showing you that I care about you, but so do this for me. The spoken words, I care about you, that's the overt message. Sontag says we should pay attention to how, the context of that message and how that message is being spoken or being expressed. In another scenario, you can imagine a friend showing that he or she cares about the friend with actions or with the way that it is being, that those words are being said and what else is being said. What is the reason? What is the real reason? And if you pay attention to the process, the exchange, the context of the exchange, we are more likely to know the style and whether or not what is being spoken is genuine. So to emphasize and to clarify this important central point, Sontag is not asking us to ignore the message, ignore the so-called content. What she's saying instead is to also pay attention to the how, not to what, but in addition to how the thing is being said. If there's a message, that message is in the process of being produced right there in front of us, as opposed to something that you have faith in. You have faith in the words that are being spoken. Okay, so another example, this is, I know it's an extremely trivial example, but I think it is helpful to just warm us up in our thinking about this topic. So example of a salesman, or salesperson, to make it gender neutral. A salesperson is trying to persuade you to buy something, to buy a piece of software. The salesperson might explicitly say, overtly say that this software is so beneficial to you. It will change the way you do your business or you solve your personal problems. So they're saying a lot of things as salesmen do. But the way that they are communicating might reveal signs of uncertainty, or but on the other hand, they might show signs of being overconfident or over positive, overly happy. A salesperson who is like cheerful, suspiciously cheerful and suspiciously super confident. And that super confidence might trigger us to think that maybe they're compensating for something. Maybe this software is not as useful for me, and maybe they're trying to really exaggerate. So this example might seem unrelated to Sontag's essay on art, but it demonstrates the importance of congruence and incongruence between the overt message and the covert process. And Sontag herself writes that the world is an aesthetic phenomenon. The world, the entirety of the world, all of our experiences, we can approach them as aesthetic phenomenon. which means we can think about them in terms of the process of expression, in terms of style, in terms of form. So instead of the title on style, to make it more relevant to us, we can think of the title, alternative title, like on incongruence or on disharmony. Now, what other forms of incongruence can you think of? Just search, see what other ways can you find, what other examples from your experience of when something is being said. For example, when I read a work by Colleen Hoover, the 2 books that I recently reviewed, it's just very clear that she is trying to say that I am promoting certain things in my story. I'm trying to say certain things like defending, promoting women's empowerment. But then the way she describes the desire of her characters is very much against that. It is completely the opposite, completely undermines the things that she's trying to do overtly. The other book that I recently reviewed, one of the recent reviews was on 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Again, it is about paying attention and being fair to people who are living at the margins of society because of their sexual preferences. But the story itself, the process, is not about that. It doesn't defend that at all. In action, it is just like that friend who says, I care about you, man. But then in their action, they completely fail to show that. In my experience, I was really surprised to find that kind of discrepancy during my PhD program. When I was a PhD student, I was really surprised to discover that my official mentors, the full professors who were in charge of the research, who owned the labs, managed the labs, how completely uninterested they were in research and in all things having to do with intellectual discussion. It is really truly surprising the amount of anti-intellectualism that goes on in universities. Every time we had a group discussion with our mentors, the students and the mentor, the topics usually involved sports, food, restaurants, travels. And if a student approached a topic related to research, you could visibly see the mentor like rolling his eyes or her eyes, depending on who was there at the time. The mentor, the full professor, who officially is like devoted to research, would roll their eyes like, oh, come on, stop talking about that stuff. Stop talking about research. This doesn't apply to all professors. It reflects my very narrow experience. But there is a certain type of PI, certain type of academic researcher that this description applies to. And they are usually very successful on paper. They have lots of publications, lots of awards, mostly at the expense of student labor. But if you pay close attention to them, you see that their interest in research is purely instrumental. It's purely because they want to get more publications. And beyond that, they will just check out. And because they are successful, because this method works instrumentally, it does work. They are faster, more productive, more efficient, because they just focus on getting the papers out, getting the papers published. They win the competition, and they are slowly dominating completely the academic setting, the academic scene. And because their method is more easily transferable to the next generation, it's easier to tell students and teach students to just care about their publications. It is much harder to teach people to be original, to do interesting research, because not only that would slow them down, it would also runs the risk of not working. That kind of transfer takes a lot of effort, and it involves risk. It involves inherent risk because the person might be confused for a few years about what they want to do. They might just spend a year or two reading. Anyways, back to Sontag. Sontag is not saying that we should uncover something deep in the person. So those professors that I'm criticizing, joining Sontag wouldn't say that we should get deep into their mind and discover what is true about them. With the salesman, he wouldn't say, ignore the appearances and try to uncover what is inside the mind of the salesman or the researcher or the data scientist or the journalist to get to something deeper. In fact, it's the complete opposite. Sontag says, pay attention to what is outside. Pay attention to the appearances. Try to decode, or not even decode, just get to the meaning of what is right there in front of you. When the professor rolls his eyes, when you bring up a research idea, that is there, that is right there. There's truth in that reaction. When the professor just tries to show very physical, primal kind of confidence that, oh, I'm the boss here, that itself is a message. It is in the process of being produced and being expressed right there. It doesn't matter what they say on paper. It doesn't matter what words come out of their mouth. The truth is there in the appearances. I remember sitting at a conference in Amsterdam. It was 2015 with next to my friend. My friend was also in the audience and sitting next to me. And we were both paying attention to a terrible presentation about connection between AI and psychology. The presentation was dull, it was flashy in the wrong way, and it had nothing to do with knowledge and contribution to knowledge. It was just a set of empty promises. And I turned to my friend and I told him, what do you think about his style? It really bothers me. And my friend turned to me and said, well, we should ignore the style. We should just be consumers of information. Those are his exact words. He said we should consume the information that is coming our way. So according to my friend, we should completely forget about the style and pay attention to the information, the content that is coming our way, and that would be useful. So what my friend was defending was the faith in the core message. There's something deep there, hidden at the deep core of an uninspiring, unexcited scientist who's trying to be flashy. So that's the faith that I and Sontag and others are arguing against. Instead, we say, pay attention to the superficial features, what somebody is doing, if they seem happy in what they're saying, or if they're trying too much to be excited, if they're trying too much to be cheerful, if they have discrepancies similar to that salesperson who is not super convinced. So, in essence, the argument is about the value in paying attention to style, that there is value in paying attention to style, in figuring out what is going on. The reason why this is very difficult in our time is because we live in a culture, and with the help of technologies, that have allowed the messages, the overt, superficial messages, to be amplified and very effective in grabbing our attention. That has made it very difficult to pay attention to the process, to actually pay attention to how something is being generated, whether or not something is actually in the process of being delivered or not. Is there delivery, or is it just promise and empty promise? Because of this hyper focus on messages, hyper focus on the marketing of what is going on, it is very difficult for us now to pay attention to style, to even get the value of style as something that we can examine, we can inspect, even though that should be relatively easy because the style is more accessible by being in the appearances of things. Let me know what you think, if you have other examples to consider, and maybe we will continue this at some point in the future. Thank you.